Hello everybody. I'll be starting a new series where I will be dealing with the pharmacotherapy of various cardiac ailments. And I will be starting by discussing the pharmacotherapy of heart failure. Before we jump into the treatment portion, it's important that we learn a few core concepts related to heart failure and some important definitions and classifications which have recently come up. And it's important to know these classifications because the therapeutic regimens all across the world are now based on this classification. So let's start. First, we'll deal with the definition of heart failure. So, heart failure has been defined by the American College of Cardiology as a complex, a complex clinical syndrome that results from any structural or functional impairment of ventricular filling or ejection of blood So that's the latest definition as given by the American College of Cardiology or the American Heart Association in the year 2017. And what I want you all to notice is that they have included two things in the definition. One is ventricular filling and the other is ejection. So essentially both systolic and diastolic dysfunction are categorized into heart failure. That is, suppose the venous return to the heart is x ml, let's say 100 ml, and the heart is also pumping out the 100 ml, but this 100 ml is insufficient to meet the metabolic demands of the body. So though the heart is maintaining its ejection fraction, but the cardiac output is insufficient for the metabolic demands of the body, and this will also be categorized as a heart failure. And similarly, when the venous return is 100 ml and the left ventricular outflow is only 30 ml, of course then also it will be a heart failure. So let's just discuss about the etiologies of heart failure over here. This table is from Harrison, and over here I want you to focus that they have divided the etiologies into three main categories. That is heart failure with depressed ejection fraction, which is where the ejection fraction is less than 40%. Heart failure with preserved ejection fraction, where the ejection fraction is maintained at more than 40 to 50%. And heart failure in case of high output states. Now, in depressed ejection fraction, I want you to remember that myocardial infarction, myocardial ischemia, hypertension, obstructive valvular diseases, and infiltrative disorders. These five can have both depressed as well as preserved ejection fraction. However, more commonly in clinical practice, it is observed that they lead to heart failure with depressed ejection fraction, but there has been incidences of heart failure with preserved ejection fraction in these etiologies as well. Other important etiologies under depressed ejection fraction are cor pulmonale, regurgitant valvular diseases, Chagas disease, and the chronic bradyarrhythmias and the chronic tachyarrhythmias. Okay, now under heart failure with preserved ejection fraction, I want you to remember that pathologic hypertrophy due to cardiomyopathies and hypertension, infiltrative disorders like amyloidosis, sarcoidosis, and storage disorders like hemochromatosis. These are very important etiologies. And finally, there are high output states. I'm sure you know thyrotoxicosis, chronic anemia. However, I want you to focus on this beriberi and systemic arteriovenous shunting. So these are the most common etiologies of heart failure. Now let's move on to the classification of heart failure. Now there have been various classifications over the ages, like left heart failure, right heart failure with backward symptoms, heart failure with forward symptoms, etc. But nowadays the classification has been more focused on the treatment aspect, and as such I would like to go forward with that treatment based classification of heart failure. So I have remembered it in this way that heart failure can be acute or it can be chronic. Chronic heart failure can again be of decompensated type or compensated type. Now, this acute heart failure and chronic decompensated heart failure, both of these come under the same umbrella, and that is ADHF. What is ADHF? Acute decompensated heart failure. And why are we clubbing it under the same umbrella? It's because they both have the same therapeutic regimen. Now let's move on to compensated heart failure. Essentially, this is not a classification, but these are the two types of heart failure which are observed under compensated heart failure. What I mean to say is that let me first write down what are those two types. That is heart failure with preserved ejection fraction and heart failure with reduced ejection fraction. Well, now, like I said, heart failure can have preserved ejection fraction and a reduced ejection fraction, and that is what I mean to say is that under acute decompensated heart failure, there can be a preserved ejection fraction type and a reduced ejection fraction type as well. However, that is not therapeutically relevant. Therapeutically relevant, whether the ejection fraction is preserved or not preserved, that is important for the therapy of compensated heart failure, and that is why I have marked them separately over here. So, and that is this is the denotion, that is PEF means preserved ejection fraction and REF means reduced ejection fraction. Now let's move on to the pathogenesis. Now I want you all to please pay close attention from here onwards. First, there is an index event. What is an index event? Anything which sets off the cascade. So there is an index event of heart failure. Example, suppose there is a MI. Now the index event of heart failure will lead to a decrease in cardiac output. Okay, this decreased cardiac output will cause baroreceptor dysfunction. Okay, this baroreceptor dysfunction will lead to a decrease in afferent inhibitory signals to where? The vasomotor center. This leads to an activation of the sympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system will act on the kidney activating the RAS axis. There will be a upregulation of angiotensin II, and there will be upregulation of aldosterone. Aldosterone and angiotensin II will cause sodium and water retention. Further, the vasomotor cortex will also release vasopressin. Vasopressin will act on the kidneys again to cause sodium and water retention. Now, this activated sympathetic nervous system will also cause an increase in heart rate, and it will also cause an increase in cardiac output, but at the cost of an increased MVO2, that is myocardial oxygen demand. And it will also cause a decrease in limb blood flow so as to preserve perfusion to the essential organs. And the increase in aldosterone and the increased angiotensin II will cause vasoconstriction of the peripheral vasculature and will also cause cardiac remodeling. This cardiac remodeling is a very important topic, and I will be dealing with it separately just after this portion. And finally, I would like to mention that this decrease in cardiac output will cause a decrease in renal perfusion, which will further activate the kidneys to activate the RAS axis. So this is the complete pathogenesis of heart failure and the changes that occur. Now, the next topic I'll be dealing with is cardiac remodeling, and I will be taking the example of the left ventricular chamber. So, left ventricular remodeling. What all does happen in left ventricular remodeling? So, the changes can broadly be classified into three groups. Number one, there will be alterations in myocyte biology. Number two, there will be myocardial changes. And finally, there will be LV chamber remodeling. Now, all of these sound very similar, but actually different processes are involved. Let's go deal with them step by step. So, alteration in myocyte biology. What is the first change to occur? That is excitation, contraction, coupling changes. Why does this occur? This occurs due to decreased function of SARCA 2A and hyperphosphorylation of ryanidine receptor. This will lead to an increase in intracellular calcium and a decrease in calcium in the smooth endoplasmic reticulum, which will of course lead to increased excitation and contraction. The next change under alterations in myocyte biology is expression of beta myosin heavy chain gene, which actually provides more energetically economical contractions. Then there is beta adrenergic desensitization, there will be hypertrophy, there will be myocytolysis, and finally there will be disruption of the cytoskeletal proteins and lines. Okay, so these are the changes under alterations in myocyte biology. Now let's move on to the myocardial changes. Myocardial changes, there will be myocyte loss. This will be due to necrosis, apoptosis, autophagy, and there will also be alterations in extracellular matrix. That is, there will be matrix degradation and myocardial fibrosis. Okay, so these are the two changes under myocardial changes. And finally, LV chamber remodeling. And here there will be LV dilatation, then there will be increased LV sphericity, there will be LV wall thinning, and finally there will be mitral valve incompetence. So these are the changes which occur under the umbrella of cardiac remodeling. Now, what is the problem of cardiac remodeling? In essence, if you truly evaluate it, what happens is that the pathology of heart failure will temporarily stop, and there will be an increase in cardiac output as well because of these changes. But in the long run, it will cause an increase in cardiac output at the cost of increased myocardial oxygen demand, and hence finally there will again be decompensation, and hence this will be a vicious cycle which will continue. And so this is why we need to halt this cardiac remodeling. And that is why, like I mentioned before you, what are the hormones causing this cardiac remodeling? Yes, that is angiotensin 2 and aldosterone, and that is why these RAS inhibitors form a very important part of the pharmacotherapy of heart failure. So that is that for the first video. I'll come back in the next video and deal with the actual therapy portion. Okay, thank you.